Typhoon Haiyan killed more than 3,600 people. Emergency supplies are finally getting to survivors. 2 million people are now believed homeless. What's next for this island nation of 98 million people? Let's take a look.
Before dawn, they lined up at the ferry terminal in Cebu City to make the journey to the neighboring island of Leyte and then on to the nation's capital. Ramon Gerardo is followed on his search for his family. The only way Gerardo and many others will know if their families survived is by making this journey. Like so many Filipinos, Ramon works abroad. It has taken him 3 days to travel from Saudi Arabia.
I sleep maybe 2 hours only, thinking what happened, what is happening to my family, my relatives, and all in Tacloban City in Leyte.
Ramon has to travel north and then east to see whether his wife and 5 children have survived the storm. And as every mile passes, the scenes of destruction get worse. After 4 hours, Ramon reaches his home, and the devastation is overwhelming. Ramon is told by a family friend that his family has survived. And though visibly relieved, he wants to see them with his own eyes and has to travel a few more miles through the storm-ravaged city. As night falls, he sees what was once his home.
This is my youngest son.
One by one, his 3 sons come out to greet him, followed by his daughter, and finally, an emotional scene. He is reunited with his wife. Against all odds, his whole family survived. But the struggle now is to stay alive. The longer survivors go without access to clean water, food, shelter, and medical help, the greater chance of disease breaking out and people dying as a result of wounds sustained in the storm.
And joining us now is former White House aide Didi Benke and political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. Thanks both for being here on Fresh Outlook this week. Well, I don't think that there's much debate here. That is just such tragedy that we're seeing. And as we just heard right now, the biggest call is to prevent the outbreak of disease, which international workers, I will say, when I was reporting for the tsunami in Southeast Asia, did a remarkable job. So we can only hope going forward that there is that to be hopeful for. Dr. Bart, you were telling me right now that bringing relief to the people and the survivors is critical right now. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, psychologists say that typically after a catastrophe like this, the survivors are overwhelmed with negative thoughts. We certainly can understand that, but extremely negative mental set, if you will. So there's a team of psychologists actually going to the Philippines, and what their intent is to just try to get people for the first 2 or 3 weeks to get through the process, have them see things in not quite as negative a light, present some hope, and actually the psychologists working with the team of nurses that will be there and other physicians to try to take a look at their mental outlook as well.
Why is the first 2 to 3 weeks so critical?
Because they're so overwhelmed with this negativity, you know, a loss perhaps of family members, and where am I going, what am I going to be doing? But if they have a sense of hope over a few weeks, you know, that maybe in a year from now this will be rebuilt to a certain extent, again, more projection out into the future as to where they can be, that would be very helpful to them. But it's hard to think that way when you're in a catastrophe.
And it's amazing to see one of the only good things that ever comes out of a tragedy like this, is that the whole world will come together. And we're certainly seeing that. Didi, we've seen folks from all over the world, international aid workers. So certainly people are crossing those political lines to help these such unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, and the United States, in a huge way, we pledged $20 million, and and it's really upsetting about China. To point out they are at 1.6, but before they only pledged 100,000, and they are very close to them, and they can be very helpful, and they work with them in the economy. So at least the United States have stepped up, and they're going to continue to do that. And we have a rich history of that, and it is important because now food and water are basic needs to just survive. These people need it, and the Philippines is underdeveloped compared to a lot of places, and it's an island. It's hard to get to. So, we're doing the best that we can, I think, and the United States can be proud to be a partner, and that's a big ally for us.
And I certainly think that when you look, thank God that Vietnam was spared any of the major destruction as well. I covered the tsunami, the southeast tsunami, which hit Banda Aceh, Indonesia, and 10 other countries, and it was so critical at that point when you saw how many people, there were 250,000 people killed in just, it was the December 26th tsunami, and just incredible. But we saw a lot of children that worked with art projects afterwards, and I did a lot of stories on that. Why is that so helpful for the kids, Dr. Bart?
Well, a great point that you're making, because art and music and that type of thing makes people think a little bit beyond themselves and the tragedy, and maybe what they can do with their lives, maybe how they can move forward. It's a way of actually displacing themselves from the immediate surroundings and transforming themselves into another place, another mindset, if you will. Very positive way to deal with a crisis like this.
And certainly, Dee Dee, I think a lot of people are sometimes surprised that the Philippines is the 12th largest country. Obviously, it's an island country of 98 million people, but it's the 12th largest, and certainly an ally of ours, and we have to continue to help them.
Yeah, we do, and again, we are, compared to some of the others. IKEA alone, the store IKEA, they're donating 2.7 million, and China's still at 1.6. So, they really need to step up because they're closer. They can do that, and the whole world needs to put forth the effort, obviously, because these people are dying. They're struggling. This is one of the basic needs, basic humanitarian needs. And here's another thing, politically, for the United States, what we're thinking about doing is sending cash instead of the grain, instead of the food, because they can work it quicker. However, will it really get to them if we just hand over cash, because it tends to somehow disappear through the government. So that is an issue right now with us in dealing with foreign aid, and certainly this situation with
and I certainly think that's even you hear all these donations, don't send supplies, send cash, and right now it is hard to get the supplies over there, but I think some people are a little wary of doing that.
Absolutely they are, and it's a big debate right now. And in fact, they were about to take a vote on it, and then when this happened, it really, is on the mind of folks in Washington. So
yeah, I just wanted to say also the Israelis apparently are stepping up to the plate. They're sending
yes,
a whole team over there, a large team, a contingent of folks to help. So I thought that was quite impressive.
Yeah, this is when you need to have the international unity for sure. When people are dying and they can't eat, and children are just, you can't. If you don't have water and you don't have food, you're not going to last long.
What was critical in the southeast tsunami, because you had so many people who had died, there was 250,000 people across 11 different countries. But one of the things that they were afraid of is that as the death toll continued to rise, that there would be a break. But it was actually very interesting that the Red Cross provided vaccinations to so many basic things like measles, malaria nets were in full supply. So they actually saved a lot of lives, and that was sort of an untold story that you didn't see with the tsunami. But still, to me, that was one of the most horrible tragedies, 250,000 people. We can only hope right now that the death toll does not continue to climb. In terms of long-term recovery, psychologically, Dr. Bart, what are the next steps? You've got the 2 to 3 weeks to get people to cope, but how do you give people the hope to continue and rebuild?
Yeah, the hardest part for me as a psychologist is the short run, the first, as we're talking about the few weeks. But to your question, going forward, if people can think about where they can be, what they can do in 6 months or a year from now, if you can get them to think that way, and actually at this point the whole country to think that way, what can we do, how we can help these folks, how we can rebuild even better than before.
And they have to, because they were not prepared. That was one of the one parts where people are...
Yeah, exactly. Not just the positive spin on it, but a reality which can affect people positively in terms of we can rebuild, we can do this better, we can see things and we can project it out over a year or so. That makes a big difference for people.
And to keep this in the American forefront, to make sure that people are aware, because they're going to need long-term recovery, that's certainly going to be critical as well, Dee Dee.
Oh, absolutely. And, and again, with the United States having a rich history of helping with the humanitarian effort, we've always been a leader in that, and we're doing that with the Philippines for sure. But it's just much harder for the Filipinos because it's an undeveloped country, and with it being an island, and they're really, really hurting right now. It's a tough situation. So, let's hope that our friends across the world will follow the example of our country and help our friends in the Philippines out.
A couple of debates have come up about global warming. The fact that this was such a superstorm in terms of the size. Last year we had Sandy, now we have this, and of course a much greater loss of life. But you had sustained winds of something like 190, which was unheard of for this island.
Yeah, as a psychologist, I'm not a climatologist, okay? But as a psychologist, I have a lot of trouble with this whole argument on global warming. I just don't understand how there can be any naysayers to this. I just don't understand it really, Dee Dee, because in the
A
last
naysayer.
in the last 100 years, the carbon in the atmosphere has gone up over 10,000%. How could that happen?
You know, but I think it's
not-
pathetic
it's not
to bring
by
that up,
accident.
though. I think it's awful to bring that up. These people are dying, and way to make a political statement when people can't even eat or have water.
Oh,
They
I
should be
agree.
ashamed of themselves for bringing that up. And I absolutely don't believe in climate change. So.
Well, I don't think
But
that
I don't think we should be talking about right now. That's for sure.
Well, I think we should talk about the disaster and helping people, and I think, but these storms do bring up that point of view.
And certainly a newfound respect for Mother Nature as
Sure.
well, but I also think that there is also a increased fear as well. But we are going to go to our next topic. We thank you for discussing this.
Nobody's
and
for
we're
us to talk about. I just said didn't make a political statement. So.
All right.
That's fine.
Well, we're going to take a short break right now. When we return, we'll talk about a break that workers say they will take if Walmart opens its doors even earlier on Thanksgiving night. Don't go away.